My mom and my husband are texting constantly. Then I saw what she sent him at 2 a.m. It started with a vibration. One of those tiny, buzzing, annoying hums that slips under a bedroom door and finds its way into your half-asleep brain. I didn't mean to check his phone. That's not something I usually do. But when it buzzed a second time, at 2:03 a.m., no less, I rolled over and peeked at the screen. Mom, 2:03 a.m. still thinking about what we talked about. Can't sleep. At first, I thought maybe it was my mom texting me. But it wasn't. It was his phone. My husband's. And my mom's name was saved as just Mom. No mother-in-law. No full name. Just Mom. That's when the weirdness kicked in. I lay there staring at the screen, not touching anything, heart thudding like I'd heard a noise in the dark. What could my mother possibly be talking about with my husband at 2 in the morning that was keeping her awake? I watched the screen, expecting it to go dark. But it didn't. 3 dots appeared. She was typing again. You're not alone in this. I'll always be here for you, no matter what she says. Now, you tell me, what would you do? I didn't wake him. I couldn't. I just laid there, eyes wide open, mind racing, trying to stitch together the pieces of a puzzle I didn't even know existed. That morning, I made eggs and toast. I didn't say a word, but I watched him carefully. Too carefully. Every smile, every stretch, every casual love you, babe, felt rehearsed now. Manufactured. My mom called later that afternoon. Usual chat. Weather. Book club drama. How my brother still hadn't returned her garden shears. She didn't mention texting my husband. Not once. But something in her voice. Something was different. A little too smooth. Like she was reciting lines. And the way my husband glanced at his phone when she called. Like he already knew it was her. Sealed it. Something was going on. And I was going to find out what. That night, I waited until he was in the shower. I'd never snooped before. Never needed to. But something had shifted. Like someone moved the furniture of my life just an inch to the left, and now I couldn't stop tripping over it. I took his phone, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened the message thread. They'd been texting every day. Not just occasional chats or shared jokes. I mean full-on conversations. Paragraphs. Photos. Memes. Inside jokes I didn't recognize. And not just late-night musings either. Midday check-ins. Early morning good lucks. Little thinking of you notes. I scrolled. Scrolled some more. 3 weeks worth of texts. Hundreds. Maybe more. Nothing explicitly romantic. No, I love yous or flirty emojis. But it was intimate. Too intimate. Mom, last Thursday, you make me feel seen. Like I matter again. Him, of course you matter. You've done everything for this family. Mom, you're the only one who notices. I froze. My stomach felt like it was being wrung out like a wet dish rag. What the hell did that mean? I kept scrolling until I found a thread from the week before. A picture. A dimly lit selfie of her on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, eyes red. Caption said, can't sleep. Just needed to feel close to someone. And then his reply. Wish I could sit out there with you. You deserve more peace than this world's given you. He saved the photo. My jaw clenched so tight I thought I'd crack a molar. I wasn't mad because they were close. I wasn't even mad because she leaned on him. I was mad because it was secret. This wasn't normal daughter-in-law and son-in-law bonding. This was emotional intimacy that had no damn business sneaking around in the dark. When he got out of the shower, I was still holding the phone. I didn't mean to. I just froze. He looked at me. Towel around his waist. Steam behind him. And for the first time in 5 years of marriage, I didn't know who I was looking at. He opened his mouth. Maybe to lie. Maybe to explain. But I beat him to it. What exactly are you and my mom talking about at 2 in the morning? He didn't panic. He didn't flinch. He just pulled the towel a little tighter, sat on the edge of the bed, and gave me a look, like he was trying to figure out how much I already knew. Then he shrugged. She's just been going through stuff, he said. Your dad's not exactly husband of the year. You know that. That's how he started. Cool. Calm. As if late-night messages and porch selfies were no big deal. Just a struggling woman and her caring son-in-law, texting through the darkness. Going through stuff, I repeated. He nodded. She doesn't feel seen. She's lonely. She said she connects with me. That's all. I'm just being kind. My hands were shaking now. Kindness doesn't include saving selfies from your wife's mother. At 2 a.m. He ran a hand through his hair. Okay. Yeah, that part was weird. I didn't ask for it. She just sent it. I didn't want to be rude. I laughed. But it wasn't funny. Not even close. So you didn't tell me, because you were being polite? Silence. He didn't answer. Didn't deny it. Just stood up and walked to the window like the conversation was giving him claustrophobia. I stared at his back. Are you in love with her? The words slipped out before I even knew I was going to say them. He turned. Quick. What? No. God, no. She's your mother. Then what is this? I asked, holding up his phone. Because it sure as hell isn't normal. He sighed, rubbing his temples. She needs someone. That's all. Your dad treats her like wallpaper. I'm just filling in the cracks. That sentence, filling in the cracks, made something in me snap. Because cracks turn into chasms. And chasms swallow whole families. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did he. We just lay there in a silence so thick, it pressed on my chest like a stone slab. The next day, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't call, didn't text. I just pulled into the driveway, walked up the porch, and rang the bell like a woman looking for answers. And that's when I saw it. On the porch swing, the same swing from the selfie, was a folded shawl. Mine. My shawl. The one I left there 2 weeks ago, during our last Sunday dinner. Only now, it was folded neatly on her lap, like a souvenir. She opened the door like nothing was wrong. Sweetheart, she said with that tired smile of hers. What a surprise. She didn't hug me. Just stepped aside and let me in, like she'd been expecting me all along. The house smelled like tea and lemon, her signature scent. And for a moment, the familiarity almost made me forget why I was there. But then I saw the shawl again, draped now over the arm of the couch like it lived there. My shawl. My stomach turned. She poured tea without asking, sat across from me, and waited, like she already knew what this was. You two have been talking a lot, I said, keeping my voice steady. She didn't even blink. We have. That doesn't strike you as strange? The time? The tone? She looked at me with eyes that were older than I remembered. Sadder. You don't understand, honey. You see me as your mother. But to him, I'm a woman. I dropped the cup. Porcelain cracked on tile. Tea spread like a brown stain across the kitchen floor. Are you serious right now? She didn't flinch. Just reached for a towel, started dabbing at the mess like we were talking about the weather. It's not what you think, she said. We never touched. We never crossed that line. But we talk. Really talk. He listens to me in a way your father never has. My heart was pounding so loud, I could barely hear myself speak. You're his mother-in-law. She smiled, soft and condescending. I'm also a woman who's been invisible in her own home for 30 years. I stood up. Fast. The chair scraped against the tile with a screech. This is wrong. You know it. He's my husband. She stood too, calm as a lake in winter. Is he? She asked, tilting her head. Because lately, it feels like he's mine. I don't remember walking out. I just remember the cold air hitting my face like a slap as I stumbled back to my car. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't get the key in the ignition. I sat there, engine off, watching her silhouette through the window. She didn't chase me, didn't call, just stood there, still as a statue, staring back like we were two strangers. That night, I didn't go home. I drove around for hours, past the gas station where we used to buy ice cream, past the park where he proposed, past the diner where my mom once cried over a slice of pie because she thought my dad was having an affair. The irony almost choked me. By midnight, I was sitting in a parking lot behind the library, crying into a takeout napkin when my phone buzzed. Jake, 12:01 a.m., can we talk? I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, another message. Jake, she told me you came over. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I read those words 5 times. Then I opened the message thread between him and her. I hadn't looked again since the night it all started. And there it was. A new message. Mom, 11:44 p.m., she knows. I told her. I'm done hiding. It's your turn now. Done hiding. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. At dawn, I went home. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Like it had held its breath waiting for a storm. Jake was in the kitchen, sitting at the table like a man waiting for a verdict. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, and asked the question I'd been holding back for days. How far did it go? He didn't pretend not to understand. He didn't lie. He didn't even blink. He just looked up at me with tired eyes and said, far enough that I don't know how to come back from it. He didn't say, I love her. He didn't have to. The way his voice broke on the word back told me everything. That he'd gone somewhere, emotionally, maybe physically, that he couldn't undo. I pulled out a chair, sat across from him. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. Tell me everything. And he did. He told me it started months ago, innocently enough. A shared joke during a family dinner. A walk back to the car when I stayed behind to clean up. A text about a book they'd both read. A vent about how lonely she felt. A late-night reply. Another. Then it became daily. It wasn't supposed to be anything, he said. I thought I was helping, being there. But the more we talked, the more I stopped feeling like her son-in-law. I felt like. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. I felt sick. Not just because of what happened, but because I hadn't seen it coming. Because I trusted them. Because this kind of betrayal wasn't loud or obvious. It was slow, like water wearing down stone. Then he said something I didn't expect. It wasn't just her, you know. I blinked. What do you mean? He leaned forward, voice low. You and me. We stopped talking about real things a long time ago. You were always tired. Or distracted. Or somewhere else. I felt invisible. I should have yelled. I should have thrown something. But I didn't. Because deep down, a small part of me knew he wasn't entirely wrong. Marriage is a slow drift, sometimes. Two people floating on the same current. Until one day you look up and they're miles away. I shook my head. So you drifted. And instead of rowing back, you grabbed the nearest shore. My mother. He winced. Fair. I stood. We're done, Jake. Whatever this is, or was, I can't carry it. And I won't fight her for you. I shouldn't have to. He didn't argue. He didn't chase me. Just sat there, staring at the wedding photo still hanging crooked on the hallway wall. The one my mother had framed for us. I couldn't go back to my apartment. Not yet. So I drove to the only place I'd sworn I'd never return alone, my childhood home. The house with the yellow shutters and the porch swing where my mother had sent that midnight photo. She wasn't home. Her car was gone. The house was quiet. I let myself in with the spare key hidden in the chipped birdhouse by the back door. The same one she always said no one would ever think to check. Ironic, considering how many of her secrets lived here. I didn't have a plan. Just a need. A need to understand why. Why her? Why him? Why now? I wandered through the kitchen, past the family photos, into the living room, where a dusty record player still sat like a shrine to another life. And then I found it. The box, tucked deep in the hallway closet, under old sweaters and photo albums and forgotten holiday decorations. It was plain, brown, unlabeled. But when I pulled off the lid, my breath caught in my throat. Letters. Dozens of them. All from her, my mother. But none addressed to me or my father. They were to someone named Alan. Some were handwritten, others typed. Some stained with tears. All of them dated. Some as far back as 30 years. I sat cross-legged on the floor and started reading. Alan, I see him every day and feel nothing. But when I think of you, I feel 16 again. Alive. Free. I can't leave. I can't break our daughter's home. But I want to. God help me, I want to. He doesn't look at me the way you did. He doesn't hear me. I'm disappearing. It hit me then, like a gut punch. She'd been emotionally cheating on my father long before she ever started texting my husband. This wasn't new. This was a pattern. A cycle of hunger, not for romance, but for validation. And Jake? He was just the latest willing ear. The next Alan in a long line of ghosts. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel rage. I felt something worse. I felt understanding. Because I knew that ache. That quiet desperation. The need to be seen. But unlike her, I hadn't fed it with betrayal. I stood, box in hand, and placed it on the kitchen table. Let her find it. Let her read her own words. Let her remember who started this fire long before Jake ever held the match. She walked in like she owned the silence. Didn't flinch when she saw me at the table. Didn't ask why I was there. Her eyes fell on the open box and the scattered letters. And still, she didn't blink. She set her purse down, took off her coat. Calm as ever. Found your old pen pals, I said. She didn't deny it. Didn't try. Instead, she sat across from me, folded her hands, and said, You weren't supposed to see those. I leaned back. Neither was Jake supposed to see you in a shawl at 2 a.m. And yet, her lips twitched. Almost a smirk. You think this is about him? She said. Jake was a symptom, not the disease. I stared. Excuse me. You married a man just like your father, she said flatly. Silent. Absent. Too busy fixing things to notice the people in front of him breaking. My hands clenched. I didn't come here for therapy, I said. No, she said, voice soft. You came for a villain. Someone to blame. She stood, walked to the sink, poured herself a glass of water, sipped it like we were discussing movie reviews and not the disintegration of our family. You don't see it yet, do you? She asked, back turned. But you will. One day, when you're tired and 30 years into a life you didn't choose. And you'll wonder what happened to the girl who wanted everything. You're projecting, I said. She turned around. No, I'm warning you. Her eyes weren't cruel. They were hollow. She sat again, looked me straight in the face, and said something I'll never forget. Jake was never mine. He was just the first one who saw me. And then, just like that, I saw her not as a mother or a monster, but as a mirror. One crack down the middle. I left that night without slamming a door. No shouting. No tears. Just silence. The kind that hums in your ears after you've been underwater too long. Jake was gone when I got back. Not a note. Not a bag packed. Just gone. And part of me was glad. Because I needed to breathe in a house that hadn't been aired out in months. I spent the next day in a fog. Cleaned drawers that didn't need it. Rearranged furniture that hadn't moved in years. Anything to give me back control of something. That's when I found the envelope. It was under a stack of old mail, shoved in the bottom of Jake's workbench drawer in the garage. No return address. Just my name on the front, written in my mother's handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Old. Curled at the edges. A woman in her 20s, holding a baby. Not just any woman. My mother. And not just any baby. Me. But the man beside her, smiling, arms wrapped around both of us, wasn't my father. There was a note on the back. Alan. 1993. The last good day. The world spun sideways. Because I was born in 1994. And my parents were married in 95. That's when it hit me. The letters weren't just love notes. They were a journal. Of a life she never got to live. Of a man she never got to keep. And a daughter who might not be who she thought she was. Or maybe she always knew. Maybe that's why she clung to Jake. Not because he reminded her of my father. But because he reminded her of Alan. Of a past she'd buried in boxes and closets and Sunday dinners. And now it was my turn to decide. Do I keep digging? Or let the bones rest? It was dusk when the doorbell rang. No call. No warning. Just that hollow ding of someone standing on your threshold, carrying something heavier than a suitcase. I opened it. Jake stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes swollen like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him, the sky was bleeding orange into night, like it knew what was coming and wanted to look away. I shouldn't be here, he said quietly. No, I answered. You shouldn't. But I stepped aside anyway. He walked in like a ghost, stopping just short of the living room. Like he didn't trust the furniture to hold him up. I didn't know, he said. I said nothing. I didn't know she wasn't over him. I didn't know about the letters. Or the picture. Or that you might not be. He trailed off. Good thing, too. Because that sentence didn't need finishing. I sat across from him, the photo on the coffee table between us. He looked at it like it might bite. She showed me her pain, he said. She made it feel like I was fixing something. Filling in. You were, I said. Just not the thing you thought. He looked up. She never got to keep him. I continued. So she found someone close enough. Close to him. Close to me. And when you gave her attention, she grabbed it like it was air. He shook his head. I don't want her. Then why are you here? His silence told me everything. Because sometimes it's not about love. It's about guilt. He pulled something from his coat pocket. A ring box. My wedding ring. I took it off that night, he said. But I didn't throw it away. I looked at the box. The band. The symbol of something we no longer were. And I told him the truth. I'm not ready to forgive you. He nodded. I'm not asking for that, he said. I just needed to say I'm sorry. Not for what happened, but for letting it happen. For letting myself believe I was innocent in it. He stood to leave. And just as he reached the door, I asked him, did you love her? He paused. No, he said. But I think she loved the idea of me more than she ever loved anyone else. It took me 3 days to find him. Alan. There was no last name on the photo, but there were dates. Locations. One was a beach we used to visit every summer when I was little, one she never let us go back to after a certain year. I remembered a t-shirt shop with a funny name. That was enough. Google did the rest. His name was Alan Price. Lives 2 hours away. Owns a second-hand bookstore. No spouse listed. A Facebook page barely used. And one photo, from 1998, showed him holding a toddler on a beach towel. A little girl in a red sun hat. The same red sun hat I still have in a box under my bed. It was me. No doubt in my mind. I stared at the screen for hours, going numb. Then I made the drive. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't think it through. Just got in the car and pointed it north. The shop was quiet. Old wood shelves. Dust motes in the air. He was at the register, head down, thumbing through a ledger like the world had shrunk to just him and his books. I stood there, shaking. He looked up. Our eyes met, and something in him froze. "Can I help you?" he asked, voice softer than I expected. I stepped closer. "My name is Rachel," I said. I think you knew my mother. Diana." His mouth parted. His hand went to the edge of the counter like he needed to hold on. "Diana," he whispered. "My God." He walked around the counter slowly, eyes scanning me like he was trying to piece together a dream he'd once buried. "She never told me she had you," he said. "She just disappeared. One day she stopped returning my letters. I didn't even know she got married." I pulled out the photograph. He took it with trembling hands. "I remember this day," he said, tears rising. "She said we'd talk about the future that night. And then she vanished." I nodded. "She married my dad a year later. Never mentioned you." We stood there in silence. Then I asked the question I'd been holding in my chest for days. "Are you my father?" He looked at me, eyes full of something I couldn't name. "I don't know," he said. "But if there's even a chance, I want to be." He didn't ask for a paternity test. Not right away. We talked for hours, Alan and I, in that creaky little bookshop that smelled like cedar and rain. About my mother, their past, the letters, and how everything unraveled before it ever had the chance to grow. He told me things I'd never heard. About how she used to dream of being a writer, how she feared becoming invisible, how she lit up when she talked about the future. Until one day, she just stopped. Disappeared. Married a man she didn't love to preserve a life she didn't choose. I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd run out of tears long before I ever got there. When I finally got home, my phone was flooded. Missed calls from Jake, one from my father, who never called unless something was broken, and a string of messages from my mother. The last one said, "If you go to him, don't come back." So I didn't. I moved out 2 weeks later. Got a tiny apartment downtown, above a noisy bakery and next to a bar that plays too much jazz. It's perfect. Jake tried to visit once. He stood in the hallway, holding flowers. I closed the door before he could speak. He hasn't come back since. Alan and I talk weekly now. We're taking it slow. He said he doesn't want to push, that he just wants to know me, father or not. As for my mother, she hasn't reached out again. The box of letters is still with me. I keep it on a shelf in the closet. Not because I want to remember, but because it's proof. Proof that silence is never harmless. Proof that emotional affairs leave bruises you can't see. And proof that sometimes, the worst betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who are supposed to love you the most. One night, months later, I got an email from her. Just a subject line. "No body. He was yours before he was mine." I stared at it for a long time, and then I deleted it. Because some stories don't need sequels. Some stories need to end, so something better can begin.